My name's Anthony Pargas, and this is my HR interview assignment. I'm with my dad, Patrick Pargas, Patrick Andrew Pargas, current CEO of Conceptions, Florida, and he also has his own private consulting firm. So I'm gonna ask him a few questions and interview him. So the first question, why did you choose to work as a CEO of a fertility practice?
Well, I don't know so much as I chose it as you kind of work up to it. I mean, the path to get to a CEO role was kind of years coming through a lot of experience and then just kind of working my way up. I originally started with Conceptions, Florida as the chief operating officer, as a COO. And then in time, just by a lot of different metrics that were used, but at the end of the day, just increasing the bottom line and just operational efficiency, I was eventually promoted into the CEO role. So it wasn't something so much I chose as something that I aspired to. And I was fortunate enough after 3 years to be promoted into that role. And I currently still serve in it to this day.
Okay. Um, what do you most like about your job?
I like leading people. I think ultimately for me, that's what kind of took me and kept me on the career path that I'm on. A CEO is just a fancy way of saying that you're a leader of an organization, but being a leader of organization really entails being a leader of people, of individuals. So I like the coaching aspect, I like the mentoring aspect of what I do, and that's what ultimately kind of led me to want to progress in this field and to be a CEO. So for me, I always wanted to be the ultimate decision maker, both on the business side, on the personnel side, on the HR side, on the accounting side. And that's always what I aspire to. So I was fortunate enough in time that I was able to kind of get to this role. So it's something that I enjoy doing. But at the end of the day, more than anything, I enjoy leading people, coaching people. I think I've had over 12 people in my tenure that have been promoted to supervisory or managerial roles. And it's one of the things that I take the most pride in my tenure over the last 6 years at Conceptions.
For my third question, what's the most challenging part about your job?
Is the people part the same thing? I probably spend the majority of my time with talking to the physician, the owner, the founder of the practice about personnel issues, which is why, the HR element of this, essentially holding this kind of role, we spend the majority of our time talking about personnel, talking about HR, talk about compliance, liability issues, so on and so forth. So I would say, bar none, in any organization that I've led or run or consulted for over the last 20 years, the most challenging part has always been the human resources component or the HR component, because keeping people motivated, keeping people around, keeping people from not leaving your organization, keeping them happy, keeping them working efficiently and effectively is no small feat. So to me, the most challenging part is the human resources component of business.
So piggybacking off of that, what would you say is your career plan going forward in your field?
I mean, it's to continue to grow, right? I mean, the CEO, essentially, the only way that I could elevate from a personal standpoint, would be to own and operate my own fertility clinic, which I'm able to do in the state of Florida, which I have zero interest in doing, because at the end of the day, I've never wanted to be an owner operator of a business that I have zero control in. Meaning that at the end of the day, I'm not a physician, I'm not an MD, and even though the state of Florida allows me to be a non-MD and still own a fertility clinic or a plastic surgery clinic, which is what my background is in, I have never wanted to take that step or take that leap, because at the end of the day, if I have three doctors working for me and they come in the next day and say that they've decided to start their own practice and they leave, I have no business. So for me, it's just being able to expand what I'm currently doing. So, in this case for Conceptions, is expanding our footprint. So right now we have two offices, one in Coral Gables, one in Miramar. So we have aspirations of expanding up and down the state of Florida, to Boca Raton, to Tampa, Orlando, upwards and onwards from there. So right now my career progression would include just expanding the footprint of Conceptions, Florida, up and down, right now specifically the state of Florida.
Okay, so what advice would you give to students who want to go into the HR field?
Um, so I'm going to answer this question, I guess, a different way. As an HR standalone job, I never in a million years would want to do that. And I mean that with all the love in the world and all the respect for people that do it. Human resources, in the way that I've seen it evolve in 20 years, is challenging to say the least. In the amount of things and the amount of hurdles and obstacles that you have to jump through now to be a human resources person, just in the way the world's changing. To me, HR is a big component about it is about protecting your business and basically not getting sued and being able to navigate a lot of landmines that we have and ones that we've created, really in the way that things have changed. I can't tell you how many meetings and how many compliance things and how many HR mandates we have that are simply about be very careful about what you do and how you interact with people, so that you don't get sued in this day and age. So as a standalone HR job, I don't think there's enough money in the world that would lead me to only do HR. However, I enjoy it as a facet and as a component as what I do. But I can tell you, as far as being an HR generalist and a human resources manager, where that's all you're dealing with all day, I have the utmost respect for that profession, but I could not imagine that being the sole component of what I did on a daily basis.
Okay, since you were just talking about dealing with people and the people that work in HR, and obviously you want to provide a good workplace environment for your employees, how do you shape the workplace culture at your practice in Conceptions, Florida?
So very cliche, but a lot of what we do is we lead by example. We don't ask people to do anything that we wouldn't do ourselves as a management team. My management team consists of 8 different managers that I have running several departments. Again, this is all the infrastructure that I've created over the last 6 years. Before I got to Conceptions, it didn't have that level of infrastructure. So a lot of what we did was create accountability, create roles, job descriptions, SOPs, your standard operating procedures, just kind of things that are really human resources 101, that we have done. So a lot of what I have now is I work very closely with the management team that we've created, that they kind of run their own departments. And then we all work together as kind of the upper management team and running things within the company. So as far as the kind of HR component and things that we expect from people, is I always tell people that we lead by example. One of the best examples that I can give is that when I was in college, my first real job was that I was a management intern for Walgreens. They were doing heavy recruiting. I think they still do to this day on college campuses. So you were what they called a management trainee. So you spent 3 months working with Walgreens. If they liked you enough, you'd be fortunate enough to be offered a management position where you can continue as a manager throughout your college career, which is what I did. It's kind of the first time that I decided that management is what I wanted to do with my career. And one of the best examples that I can give as far as leading by example is that they'd have you moving around to different locations all the time. And one of the biggest fights that was in every location that I ever went to was who cleans the bathrooms. Nobody ever wanted to clean the bathrooms. It was always a big fight. As dumb as that sounds, it was a big thing that no employee ever wanted to clean the bathrooms. You talk to a cashier and they would tell you, I wasn't hired to clean bathrooms. You talk to the person stocking, I wasn't hired to clean bathrooms. You talk to the person working in your warehouse, I wasn't in charge of cleaning bathrooms. So nobody ever wanted to do it. And then I got to a location probably 5 or 6 months in, where I got to a location where the store manager, which is the highest tenured employee at that time, I would say, hey, let me ask you a question. I still remember his name to this day. I asked him, I said, how do you deal with this? I said, I've been to 5 different stores, and the biggest fight is nobody wants to clean the bathrooms. And he said, well, I solved that very easily. He said, here in my store, we have a rotation where every single employee, irrelevant of what they are hired for, cleans the bathrooms up to and including myself. And so when I had any employee that would come and tell me, well, I'm the cashier, I wasn't hired to clean bathrooms, they would come back and say, sir or madam, I'm the store manager making a 6-figure salary, and I'm scrubbing toilets and cleaning the bathrooms alongside with you. So if I'm going to do it, the expectation is that you're going to do it as well. And I would say to this day, it's the most profound lesson I ever learned. I learned it when I was 19 years old, and I give that example to this day with every employee that I have. So the very long answer, to the question you asked is that you lead by example. And I think that people respect that and they follow that. And so what I tell my core and my nucleus of 8 managers is that don't ask employees to do things that A, you don't know how to do, or B, that you wouldn't be willing to do yourself. And I think that that's the core as far as creating the right culture, is that people know that you're willing to do things that you're asking to do yourselves. And that goes miles, at least in my experience with the employees that work for you.
So I know that you discuss certain issues that could happen at places that you work, like Walgreens or anything else like that. But what would you say that are some HR challenges that are unique to a fertility practice, like the one that you run?
So we have, while we're medical, we're very niche. Fertility or infertility is a very, very specified field. So giving you HR challenges, I'll start right from the top. The fertility specialists, are called REIs. Okay, they're reproductive endocrinologists. So essentially, they're OBGYNs that keep on going, and they do an additional fellowship in reproductive endocrinology. Right now in that field, there's about 50, let's call it 50 to 70 REIs that come out a year. Okay, a year. That's it. So think about all the infertility practices across the country. There's only 70 that are coming out as new REIs a year. There is not enough REIs in our field to support the volume and the growth that we have in our specialty. So right now, reproductive endocrinologist and REI will start a 3-year fellowship. When I started 6 years ago, you would start talking to REIs in their last year of fellowship. So, hey, you're about to finish. Come work for me in Conceptions, Florida, or come work with us, better said, in Conceptions, Florida. Now you're talking to fellows in their first year. Okay, so they still have 3 years of fellowship left, and you're already recruiting them to come and work for you 3 years down. Another big penetration in our field is that a lot of fertility practices. In fact, the majority in the United States are owned and operated by private equity or venture capitalist groups. Okay, so they have some of them have a $500 million fund behind them. So they're getting to these REIs before I can, and they're offering a ton of money. They're actually paying them while they're in fellowship. They're paying bonuses while they're in fellowship, offering them twice the salary that I can offer as a non-private equity based practice. And it's killing us. It's kind of killing private practice infertility practices. So the best example I can give you is that it's very hard for me to recruit infertility specialists, doctors, physicians, and it's becoming a limiting factor. It's stifling our growth. So when I spoke about earlier about wanting to expand into Boca, Tampa, Orlando, Tallahassee, and onwards and upwards, I can build these practices in 6 months. The limiting factor is that I don't have enough doctors to be able to put in these practices to keep on growing. So the best example I can give you is that, it's kind of a new thing now where private equity and venture capitalist groups have penetrated our field, and it's becoming a limiting factor in stifling growth for people who are non-private equity and non-venture capitalist based.